Hello everyone and welcome back to the Aether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. Today's video isn't so much on the actual story of Magic the Gathering, but an honest take at the state of modern MTG storytelling. With the newest novel for Ikoria Lair of Behemoths, Sundered Bond, there were a lot of expectations riding on this single story, and now that it's out and I've read through it, it's time to break down my own personal thoughts and opinions and share them with the greater Vorthos community. Let's see if Sundered Bond sundered the story of MTG. Hey guys, so this will be my take on the Ikoria Lair of Behemoths story, Sundered Bond by Djengo Wexler. It's gonna be a spoiler-free version as much as humanly possible, so if you haven't yet, you can pick up your own copy, which is only available online, and read it yourself first. This video will be my impressions of the story and my recommendation if it's worth picking up at all. I know there's a lot of doubt going around the Vorthos community right now, so information is key. Now I also don't want to misrepresent myself. I'm not a writing master, I don't have a degree in creative writing, and I won't be able to tell you if this story is fundamentally sound with the keys to perfect writing formula. I'm just a guy who's read a lot of MTG stories, and I'll explain if I thought Sundered Bond was worth the purchase price and the reading time. So with that, let's begin. First, a little backstory to those who may not follow the official literature or state of the Vorthos community so much. You may come here just to hear my graceful voice dissect the lore, and that's just fine. However, behind the videos, there was a lot of feeling of distrust growing between the Vorthos community and the story developers for MTG at Wizards of the Coast. After enjoying years of thoughtful lore developments through easily accessible means like free weekly story articles, things started to take a nosedive with War of the Spark. That's really just a simplification, as the quality in stories and writers has been dipping downwards for some time, but it really came to a head with the debacle that was War of the Spark. The penultimate conclusion to a story arc that dated back more than a decade was such a massive flop that it almost overnight killed any faith the fanbase had in the story or the ability of Wizards of the Coast to meaningfully conduct its development. Part of it had to do with the author they chose to pen the novel, but a lot of it also had to do with their direction of the story, how they asked the writer to write it. As you would expect, with the following stories in MTG, the community had been keeping a keen eye out to see if any lessons were learned, and improvements made that could correct the ship, so to speak. People first looked towards the horizon that was Throne of Eldraine, the first story to come after War of the Spark. It was a standalone story that didn't really dig into the deep multiversal ending threats we've been dealing with for some years now, but it did bring an old beloved character in Garruk, and although it certainly undercut some major plots from the past regarding his character, and really just simplified the Curse of the Chain Veil, it was a nice self-contained story. However, it was remarkably short, with only an online release that cost you about $4. It was a far cry from the free articles we used to get, and while it was better than the hot garbage we got for War of the Spark, it was a pretty low bar to clear, and it didn't inspire new hope for fans of the MTG lore. Following that, we got another disaster in the Vorthos community, the story, or the lack thereof, in Theros Beyond Death. On a world as beloved with characters as grand as Elspeth and the gods of the plane of Theros, fans really wanted to read a fully developed story of this world and its current events. However, we didn't get anything. No written novel, no short story articles, just the lore on the cards as they put it. Needless to say, there was very limited lore on those cards with great swaths of context missing. They had to put out a summary to help stem the confused players, but even that didn't provide much. So Theros Beyond Death was a wash, as hope then turned to Ikoria Lair of Behemoths, a new world, a new story with some new and returning characters. The novel was written by Djengo Wexler, one of the saving graces of the War of the Spark saga, who penned a great story just before the primary novel dropped. He certainly understands the state of the MTG multiverse in terms of the story, so hopes were high. But did Sundered Bond and Ikoria Lair of Behemoths deliver? Sundered Bond, in my opinion, is able to deliver a serviceable story in under 200 pages for just $4 USD. Take note of my word choice there. When I say serviceable, I mean serviceable. For those looking for a breakout hit that will bring back the good old grandiose days of MTG storytelling, well, you're not gonna find it in Sundered Bond. However, you will find a tale told with passion and understanding with careful consideration for what it could mean for the whole of the MTG multiverse. It's certainly far better than the careless pen that was War of the Spark. But let's get into specifics. The story really focuses on two main characters, the new Planeswalker for the set, Lukka, and his fiancée, Jirina, two natives of Ikoria. You may think, oh well, what about Vivien Reid and Narset? Narset isn't in the story and is only name dropped once. And while Vivien Reid takes a much larger role in the story, I would say that the focus is still mostly on the native characters of Ikoria, which actually works in this novel's favor. We follow along as Wexler builds up the world of Ikoria, a plane divided by humans and monsters that look to feed on everything they see, destroying human civilization if given the chance. We learn about what's at stake as well as some strange new events taking place, such as the magical ability some humans have to bond with monsters and terrifying new mutations occurring within monsters throughout the plane. All of this surrounds a strict authoritative government who looks to eke out survival through rules and discipline. Disobedience isn't tolerated. Traitors, bonders included, are also sentenced to death. The majority of human life has an us versus them mentality, and this story is all about exploring that dynamic and subverting it. Like I said, Sundered Bond does not see Vivien Reid as the main character in the story. We never get to see events through her perspective. However, she does play a prominent role. She's on Ikoria exploring some mysterious planeswalker who she believes is messing with the natural order on Ikoria, but really nothing else is explained. As I said, the story never really goes to her perspective. Vivien is more of a tool used to progress the story while adding her unique thoughts on monsters, animals, natural life, etc. Vivien Reid here isn't the greatest character written. As a star for the story's potential future plots, Sundered Bond kinda confused me on her development. Vivien, when appearing in her first few stories, really stood out as almost like an animal activist, someone who truly took the side of beasts, and for good or bad, would fudge up anyone looking to exploit them. I mean, she destroyed nearly an entire city because one big baron was abusing animals for entertainment. She is fierce, almost an anti-hero, who does hideous things for what she believes is the right cause. That whole development sort of gets lost here, maybe intentionally to sort of even out her character a little. But Vivien is far less invested with the government's handling of monsters than one would think judging from her previous stories. She investigates the strange occurrences happening on Ikoria with Lukka, and although we don't learn a lot, enough is left behind for us to speculate on what actually happened on Ikoria, which is certainly exciting. But yeah, Vivien goes from waging war to actually fighting on the humans' behalf. Well, kinda sorta. Not trying to spoil anything, but it's certainly a noticeable adjustment made to her character. The real meat and potatoes of this story comes with Lukka and his fiancée Jirina. The story really begins cementing Lukka as a true hero, almost a knight in shining armor sort of figure. A great young protege to lead the Coppercoats, an elite band of monster hunters. However, as he senses his ability to bond with monsters, everything gets flipped upside down and he goes on a journey to discover what this magic really means. The story writes it out as a typical hero's journey, as he learns new things about monsters, and you would expect the ending to be, well, happy. That he discovers he has more knowledge and respect for the wilds than he does for this human bureaucracy. That he learns to commune with monsters rather than fear and kill them on sight. That he meets with and grows to understand other bonders and their unique relationships with monsters, despite everyone from his old life claiming they're traitors to the human species. All of these things happen to him, yet still, well, expectations are subverted. Sundered Bond certainly has a lot of twists and turns. Things that you don't expect to happen come out of nowhere, but it's written extremely well. It's not like a M. Night Shyamalan situation. These twists feel right. However, in the grand scheme, the shortness of this novel really hurts how these developments take place. These turns are satisfying enough, but they're fast. Like a quick left turn that leaves you whiplashed. Afterwards, it really makes sense, but during it, you're just like, wait, what? And this is where we see Jirina come into play as the true hero of Sundered Bond, despite her seeming to play the side role at the very start. The entire story is really about questioning authority and how power can corrupt even a noble purpose of belief. It's about making compromises and evolving yourself to help the world grow. Yet, all of that growing, well, it certainly happens very quickly, resulting in some growing pains. At the end of Ikoria Lair of Behemoths Sundered Bond, how did I feel the story performed? Well, I liked it, and that's not just lip service. I liked it a lot. I had some issues with the pacing, but I have to say the action scenes in this novel are some of the best I've seen from Magic the Gathering. It was excellent and had me excited to turn the page. Well, it's only available in ebook, so swipe my finger, but still you get my point. It reminded me a lot of the Throne of Eldraine novel, except where I found that one to be almost forgettable, good but sort of fading into the background in terms of MTG stories. Sundered Bond stands in front of that as its more flashy and exciting counterpart. It's a narrowly focused story contained to the world of Ikoria, just like Throne of Eldraine was for Eldraine, but it brought so much more weight behind it that I have to give it a better grade. That being said, it still has the downfalls that Throne of Eldraine's story suffered. Sundered Bond is a fun romp on Ikoria, but it's just that. It's more action-packed and builds a good world, but it won't be of much interest to anyone looking to start the MTG storyline. Old fans like me will certainly take something away from it, but it's not the same place I can recommend new people to start reading. The writing is solid, the characters are good, you feel way behind their words and actions, and the action itself is really well done, but with the 177 or so page handicap, it really doesn't do enough with the world, as major cities and monsters like the Apexes are hardly mentioned, if at all. Narset doesn't appear in the story, and Vivien Reid seems to be a slightly different character from previous portrayals. And finally, the major turns in the novel are rushed. So where do I land? I believe Ikoria Lair of Behemoths Sundered Bond is a solid B. Not quite a B+, but better than the C+ that was Throne of Eldraine. Will this be the story that saves MTG storytelling and the savior of the Vorthos community? No, I don't think so. Too much damage has been done, and it will take a few great stories back to back before I feel comfortable saying things have gotten better. However, this story was a great step in the right direction. The $4 for Sundered Bond I feel is completely worth it, especially for those invested in the MTG storyline. If you like MTG lore, you'll like this novel. However, I don't think it's a great place for people to start, and if you're not already a fan of MTG's story, this may not be enough to convince you to become one. So if you're in that camp, probably a good idea just to sit this one out. Anyway guys, that's gonna do it for my spoiler-free analysis of Ikoria Lair of Behemoths Sundered Bond by Djengo Wexler. It's available as an ebook. I got mine on Amazon through my Kindle for $4 USD if you want to check it out yourself. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to support the channel by leaving it a like, subscribing, and taking the notification bell so you never miss out on a new video's release. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!